Dragon Fort Defender. The hammering echoed across the Davis backyard, a staccato rhythm accompanying Billy's grunts of effort. He wrestled another plank of scavenged wood into place, securing it with a handful of nails he'd liberated from his dad's toolbox. Dragon Fort Defender was taking shape, a testament to weeks of planning and pilfered materials. Old fence posts, discarded plywood, even Mrs. Henderson's unwanted rose trellis, all contributed to its imposing structure. By late afternoon, the fort stood defiant against the clear blue sky. 2 stories high, accessed by a rope ladder Billy had painstakingly knotted himself, it boasted a crenellated parapet crafted from stacked tires and a commanding view of the neighborhood. A tattered blue tarp served as a makeshift banner, flapping in the gentle breeze. This wasn't just a fort, it was a fortress, a bastion against the fiery breath and razor claws of any dragon foolish enough to venture into Willow Creek Estates. Billy, his face smudged with dirt and triumph, surveyed his creation. He'd even rigged up a bucket and pulley system for hauling up supplies, mainly cookies pilfered from the kitchen. He grabbed his trusty water pistol, its orange plastic gleaming in the sun, and strapped on his cardboard sword, meticulously painted silver. Time for patrol. He scrambled up the rope ladder, his small hands gripping the rough hemp. Reaching the top, he scanned the horizon, a miniature knight on his castle wall. A squirrel darted across the lawn, momentarily raising his alarm, but it proved to be a false alarm. The only threat was the setting sun, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. All clear, he announced to the empty yard, his voice echoing slightly within the fort's wooden walls. He imagined the cheers of his loyal subjects, grateful for his vigilance. Dragons might be mythical, but the feeling of protecting something, of standing guard against an unseen danger, was very real. He knew, deep down, that the dragons he was defending against weren't just fire-breathing beasts. They were the worries that kept him up at night, the bullies at school, the nagging feeling that he wasn't good enough. Dragon Fort Defender wasn't just a game. It was a symbol of his own courage. He took a deep breath, the scent of sawdust and summer grass filling his lungs. He would stand watch, always. The grumbling inspector, Harold Mr. Grumbles Grumbature, adjusted his spectacles, the late afternoon sun glinting off the lenses. He meticulously ticked off another item on his clipboard. Hydrangeas trimmed to regulation height. Check. The rhythmic scratching of his pen against the paper was the only sound disturbing the pristine quiet of Oakwood Estates. He sniffed, detecting a faint whiff of pine. Unsanctioned flora was a serious offense. Rounding the bend on Lavender Lane, his trained eye immediately spotted the anomaly. A haphazard structure of branches, draped with a faded blue tarp, nestled in the Davises' otherwise immaculate backyard. His frown deepened, etching lines into his already furrowed brow. Unapproved structure, he muttered, the words laced with disapproval. He marched towards the Davis property, his sensible shoes crunching on the meticulously manicured lawn. He stopped at the edge of the fort, his nose wrinkling. The tarp was secured with what looked suspiciously like rope? And were those action figures guarding the entrance? He bent down, peering inside. It was surprisingly elaborate. A small, dirt-floored space, adorned with drawings on scraps of cardboard and what appeared to be a control panel fashioned from an old shoebox. He could almost smell the imagination clinging to the air. He straightened up, his back protesting with a familiar crack. A clear violation of Sections 3, 2, B and 4, 1 of the HOA bylaws regarding unapproved structures and unsightly yard decorations. A notice would have to be issued. Still, something about the earnestness of the fort gave him pause. A small flicker of something akin to nostalgia? He quickly stamped it out. Rules were rules. He reached for his pen, ready to add another violation to his list, when a small voice called out from behind him. That's Dragon Defender Headquarters. Mr. Grumbles turned, his frown firmly back in place. A boy, no older than 10, stood defiantly in the yard, his arms crossed. And headquarters, Mr. Grumbles stated flatly, is in violation of several HOA regulations. Dragons versus regulations. Mr. Grumbles, his face a roadmap of disapproval, stood planted on the Davises' lawn, a clipboard clutched in his meaty hand. The sun glinted off his bald spot, making him look even more imposing. William, he began, his voice a low growl. This structure violates several HOA regulations, specifically Section 4, Subsection B, Paragraph 7, concerning unauthorized dwellings. Billy puffed out his chest. It's not just a dwelling, Mr. Grumbles. It's a dragon defense fort. He gestured towards the meticulously crafted structure of plywood, complete with crenellations fashioned from old paint cans and a dragon detector 3000, made from a colander and some Christmas lights. The dragons are getting bolder. Last night, I saw claw marks on Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning petunias. Mr. Grumbles snorted, a sound like air hissing from a punctured tire. Dragons, William? Honestly, I think you've been reading too many fantasy novels. He tapped the clipboard with a stubby finger. This fort is an eyesore, a safety hazard, and a blatant disregard for community standards. The scent of his Old Spice aftershave hung heavy in the air. Billy felt his ears burning. But Mr. Grumbles, what about the safety of the neighborhood? What about the children? Dragons breathe fire. They steal shiny things. This fort is all that stands between us and utter dragon-related chaos. He pointed to a series of elaborate diagrams taped to the fort's side, depicting various dragon weaknesses and tactical countermeasures. Mr. Grumbles' face darkened, his jowls trembling. I am giving you 1 week, William. 1 week to dismantle this monstrosity and return your lawn to its original state. Failure to comply will result in a hefty fine, and further action may be taken, including but not limited to legal proceedings and the forced removal of the structure. He scribbled something on his clipboard with a flourish, the pen scratching against the paper. He turned on his heel, leaving Billy standing alone, a lone defender against both mythical beasts and bureaucratic tyranny. The air crackled with unspoken threats. The afternoon sun seemed to mock the dragon detector 3000, rendering its Christmas lights dull and lifeless. A hero returns. Dust devils danced in the late afternoon sun, swirling across the cracked asphalt of Willow Creek Estates. Billy, engrossed in a meticulously crafted Lego fortress designed to repel goblin hordes, didn't notice the approaching rumble at first. Then the specific growl of an engine, a sound he knew intimately but hadn't heard in months, cut through his concentration. A Jeep, military green and impossibly clean, idled at the curb. Billy's breath hitched. He scrambled to his feet, knocking over half his Lego army. The driver's side door creaked open, and a figure unfolded itself from the vehicle. Sergeant Strong Davis. His uniform was crisp, but dust clung to the fabric, a testament to some far-off place Billy couldn't picture. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his jaw was firm, and the familiar, reassuring set to his shoulders was unmistakable. Billy didn't hesitate. He launched himself across the yard, a yell building in his throat. Dad. Strong met him halfway, kneeling to brace himself against the impact. Billy slammed into him, burying his face in the rough fabric of his father's jacket. The scent of sun-baked canvas and something else, something sharp and metallic, filled his nostrils. Hey, Dragon Defender, Strong murmured, his voice a low rumble. Missed you too, buddy. He hugged Billy tight, then held him at arm's length, his gaze sweeping over him. Look at you, all grown up. Gotten taller, haven't you? Billy, normally bubbling with stories of heroic Lego adventures, found himself speechless. He just nodded, his eyes wide, trying to absorb the reality of his father's sudden appearance. Surprise, Strong said, a tired smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Things wrapped up quicker than expected. Thought I'd come home and see what kind of trouble you've been getting into. Freeze. HOA enforcement. The clip-on tie felt like a vice on Mr. Grumble's throat as he scrutinized the Davises' overflowing petunias. Another infraction, another form. He moistened a thumb, the dry paper rasping beneath his touch as he turned to a pristine sheet. The screen door announced his presence with a groan, and a figure materialized in the doorway, backlit and imposing. Mr. Grumble's pulse leaped. The man was a wall of muscle, crisscrossed with belts and pouches. Was that ordnance? A cold fist squeezed his insides. This wasn't in the brochure. He'd only sought order, a pleasing uniformity. Evening, a gravelly voice rumbled as Davis stepped into the pool of porch light, revealing a face etched with a new severity. Dread choked Mr. Grumbles. Some sort of tactical gear? Were those fragmentation grenades? He scrabbled for his flashlight, the beam dancing nervously as he aimed its weak ray, a feeble symbol of neighborhood authority, at Sergeant Davis's chest. Hold it right there, he managed, his voice a reedy squeak. The clipboard quaked, threatening to litter the impeccable lawn with notices of noncompliance. Stay where you are. I'm Homeowners Association. Davis's gaze narrowed, instantly dissecting the scene with years of honed instinct. He registered the flashlight, the trembling hand, the preposterous tie clip. He saw naked fear reflected in the man's bulging eyes. From behind a rose bush, a small voice gasped. Billy, his dragon defender cape snapping in the evening air, surged to his feet, outrage blazing. "You leave my dad alone," he yelled, brandishing a plastic sword. A thorny branch clawed at his cape, momentarily delaying his heroic dash, but the force of his declaration resonated far beyond his diminutive stature. "My dad's a hero." Mr. Grumbles, clutching his clipboard like a shield, puffed out his chest. "Davis, this inflatable dragon violates Section 4.2, subsection C, of the HOA bylaws. It constitutes an unauthorized structure." He stabbed a finger at the roaring, emerald beast tethered to the oak tree. Sergeant Strong Davis sighed, the weariness etched on his face deepening the lines around his eyes. "Mr. Grumbacher, with all due respect, it's just a bit of fun for the kids." "Fun? Fun isn't in the bylaws, Davis. Noncompliance will result in a fine." Billy had had enough. He darted forward, planting himself squarely between Mr. Grumbles and his dad. "You leave him alone," he shouted, his voice surprisingly loud for such a small boy. Mr. Grumbles recoiled, his face a mask of bewildered annoyance. "Young man, you need to step aside. This is official HOA business." Billy stood firm, his chin jutting out. "My dad's not doing anything wrong. The dragon keeps the neighborhood safe from real monsters. And anyway," he declared, his voice rising with indignation, "my dad's a hero." Mr. Grumbles' small eyes narrowed behind his spectacles. "A hero? What are you talking about, child?" "He's violating HOA regulations. He fought for our country," Billy declared, his small fist clenching. "He was a soldier, a real one. He protected us from bad guys, way bigger and scarier than your dumb bylaws. He deserves to have a dragon if he wants one." Billy's eyes shone with defiance. "He's home now, and he's tired, and you're bothering him about a dragon? That's just mean." A hush fell over the yard. Sergeant Davis stared at his son, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Mr. Grumbles blinked, his usual bluster deflating like a punctured balloon. The clipboard trembled in his grasp. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Well, He glanced at the dragon, then back at Billy's determined face. I suppose it's colorful." Inspecting the weapons, Sergeant Strong exhaled, the day's burden pressing down like a physical weight. "Mr. Grumbles, right? I understand your concerns. How about a closer look?" He indicated the tactical vest resting on the patio table, the very item that had propelled the neighborhood watch captain into his agitated state. Mr. Grumbles wavered, his lower lip trembling slightly. "Closer? Is that wise?" "Perfectly safe. Think of it as equipment, not weaponry. Come see." Strong's tone was reassuring, almost soothing, a far cry from the menacing image Mr. Grumbles likely conjured. With small, measured steps, Mr. Grumbles approached. He studied the vest as if it were a viper coiled and ready to strike. Strong lifted it. "This is a ballistic vest. Ceramic plates, front and back, designed to stop bullets. I'm sure you understand the necessity for someone in my profession." He tapped the rigid plate. "Feel that? Solid protection." Tentatively, Mr. Grumbles poked at the plate, his perpetual scowl easing, replaced by a spark of interest, perhaps. Strong gestured towards the pouches adorning the vest. "These hold magazines. Empty, I assure you. See?" He flipped open a pouch, revealing its vacant interior. "First aid kit here. Tourniquet, bandages, antiseptic. All the essentials." He then picked up his helmet, the night vision mount jutting out from the front. Well, it's a helmet. For head protection. This mount is for night vision. I haven't got the goggles out here. They're a bit fragile." Mr. Grumbles' hand darted out, almost brushing the mount, then recoiled as if from an electric shock. A faint smile touched Strong's lips. "Nothing to fear, Mr. Grumbles. Just tools. Tools designed to keep people safe. Protection is my job. It's my purpose." And sometimes, he glanced towards the house, the memory of his son's defiant stand still a raw ache tinged with pride. "Sometimes, it's my son's too." A dragon-friendly compromise. Mr. Grumbles emitted a gravelly sound from his throat, like a rarely used gate swinging open. "Sergeant Davis," he began, his tone unexpectedly subdued. I owe you both an apology. My behavior was excessive, uncalled for. My obsession with community standards eclipsed my better judgment." He shifted, sunlight catching the polished fixtures of his blazer. "Billy, I'm sorry I frightened you." The boy, dragon toy still clutched tight, regarded Mr. Grumbles, a flicker of hope battling his lingering distrust. Sergeant Strong placed a reassuring hand on Billy's small frame. Apology accepted, Mr. Grumbacher. We all stumble. He gave a gentle squeeze, a silent message passing between them. Relief eased the rigid set of his shoulders, just a fraction. His gaze traveled from the fort to Mr. Grumbles. The truth is, Billy's right. It's a solid structure. Well constructed. Perhaps we can find a middle ground. An idea sparked in his expression. What if we tailored it to dragon sensibilities? Mr. Grumble's brow furrowed in confusion. Dragon sensibilities? Yeah, Billy chimed, his face now alight. Like, with flowers. Dragons like shiny things, right? Sergeant Strong affirmed with a nod. Precisely. We incorporate some window boxes, maybe some trailing vines. Something to soften the harsh lines. Bring it more in harmony with the scenery. A hint of amusement touched his lips. It would certainly put any landscaping concerns to rest. Mr. Grumble stroked his chin, contemplating the suggestion. The notion seemed preposterous, and yet... Flowers, he murmured. And vines. Adhering to pre-approved species, naturally. Naturally, Sergeant Strong echoed, a glint of humor dancing in his eyes. We'll transform it into a veritable Eden for mythical beasts. Billy's face erupted into a joyful grin. The best dragon garden ever. He released his toy, which danced in a celebratory spiral before settling on his shoulder. Mr. Grumbles, still appearing slightly bewildered, managed a small, tentative smile. Very well, Sergeant. I shall anticipate the transformation with interest. He straightened his blazer, the brass fittings reflecting the light once more. Carry on, then. With a curt nod, he turned and headed back toward his pristine lawn, a whisper of freshly mown grass lingering in the air. Friends and forts. Billy, still clutching the violation notice, felt a surge of defiance. But his dad's hand on his shoulder, a silent plea for calm, grounded him. He looked at Mr. Grumbles, his face a roadmap of disapproval, then back at his fort. An idea sparked. Mr. Grumbles, Billy began, his voice surprisingly steady. What if we made the fort beautiful? Like, really beautiful? Would that change things? Mr. Grumble's eyes narrowed. Beautiful, he scoffed. That heap of lumber? Sergeant Strong stepped forward. The boy has a point, Harold. A few flowers, some paint. It could be less offensive. He subtly flexed his bicep as he spoke. An hour later, a truce was declared. Sergeant Strong, surprisingly adept with a shovel, was digging holes. Billy carefully placed vibrant petunias into the rich soil, their velvety petals a stark contrast to the rough wood of the fort. Mr. Grumbles, initially hesitant, found himself deadheading the spent blossoms, muttering about proper gardening techniques. He even cracked a small smile when Billy, covered in dirt, presented him with a particularly perfect bloom. The fort transformed. Trailing vines of morning glory snaked around the support beams, their trumpet-shaped flowers unfurling in the morning sun. Billy had even convinced his mom to donate a few potted rose bushes. The aroma was intoxicating, a blend of earth, blossoms, and fresh paint. The dragon mural, softened by the surrounding greenery, looked less menacing and more whimsical. From a distance, the fort looked less like a fortress and more like a secret garden, a riot of color nestled amongst the manicured lawns of the neighborhood. Billy, Sergeant Strong, and Mr. Grumbles stood back, admiring their handiwork. A genuine smile stretched across Mr. Grumble's face. He chuckled, a sound so foreign that Billy almost jumped. Well, I'll be, Mr. Grumbles said, shaking his head. It seems even an old grump like me can be surprised. He clapped Billy on the shoulder, a gesture that nearly knocked the boy off his feet. Sergeant Strong grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Looks like we've got a dragon-friendly haven here, son.